Hi YouTube, welcome to my YouTube channel. Um, I put on a 6 or 7 minute little speeded up photo retouch video yesterday or the day before, and I thought I would do the full edit in slow time, and so you can see how it's done. So here is the image in question. I'm just going to get rid of the settings that's on it. These are from my previous, so clear that. So here's the image. It's slightly tighter crop by the time I'm finished, but that's fine. That's exactly what I'm. There's only a little bit negative space. I actually think this crops in better if we put it to say 2 to 3. If we bring it in about there, maybe a little bit more than that. I think it crops in just quite nicely about there. And option we can make a really thirds with the eye, etc. But I'm not going to do that just now. I'll leave it full size. We may crop it at the end. I'm going to do nothing at all here in Adobe Camera Raw, and I'm going to open the image into Photoshop. So just going to get a little marker here to see what we're going to do. Let's change the paint color for a minute. Blue's fine. Anything that's different for the colors up there just now. And I'll just get a smaller brush. Okay. So generally what I do exactly this. We'll make a quick survey of the image and have a look and see what I think needs to be done or changed about it. Start for the bottom or start for the top makes no difference. There's a few issues here with the hair. Mainly flyaways, stray hairs, and if we go real close in, you'll see there's some on the shoulder here as well. So we'll get rid of some of these. And if we have a look at here, take it out a bit so you can see what I'm looking at. So we've got a few flyaways up there. So let's just take the marker down here, all the way down, all the way down, all the way down to maybe about there. Or maybe just sort of in here, there's actually a quite strong line here. So I would maybe, everything on this side for sure would go, including maybe up here, these ones, some here, and you see that eyebrow is just intersection there, just that little bit there, it's just encroaching into the white space. And these ones here, and this bit down here, I would straighten it and either bring the hair down in that sort of line or just this sort of line. Just fix that a little bit there. So that would be that for the hair. There's a little bit shadow here and not here, so maybe bring this little bit up here light just to match that. Now, when we go into the face, I do apologise. This picture here is a picture of Melissa, a model for Edinburgh, who I had the pleasure to work with on Sunday. And again, if you look into the hairline, now the reason there's so many flyaway hairs is she was changing, she was doing her own hair, makeup, etc. So in between shots, that's fine. That's not a problem. So this little bit here, these couple of hairs here, there's a little bit area over here, and this would be probably because it's summed and we'll get rid of maybe one or two of these in here, but not all of them. And maybe just tighten this up either by bringing these hairs out or extending the thick hairline over to here, just to about there. Maybe copy this sort of bit over to here. So that would be that. When it comes to doing actual retouch to the skin, we have a method called frequency separation. Now, I've actually got an action for it. I'll quickly show you how to do it. But then I'll run the action that I tend to use. So you've got a few little tiny blemishes there, most of which will disappear when we do the frequency separation. We'll get rid of this one. A couple of wee bits here and there. Absolutely, the skin's very nice already. There's not an awful lot to get done to it. So let's get rid of this layer. See, this is just for my own benefit. I do this as a quick run over roughly what I'm doing. So we can do that, we get rid of that layer there. Let's just get rid of the old, we don't need it because I'm pretty sure what I'm going to be doing. Okay, frequency separation. Explained in a nutshell, it is the separation of the texture of the skin and the colour of the skin. They're into separate layers. Now, the colour layer of the skin is given a blur, and the blur has effect of evening up any transitions in colour and gently smoothing out. So once you've run the blur layer, you've then only got the detail layer to work on. So I'll show you how to do it first, but then I'll run my action. If you record yourself doing it, save it as an action. It saves you a lot of time anytime you've got a portrait, so they're ready for you. So duplicate your layer first, Control J or right click and duplicate layer, where you can name your layers. It is worth naming at least one of these. We'll just call it low. It's frequency, it's high frequency, low frequency they call it. You only really need one layer to blur. It's just because of one of the process you need the name. It's easier if you see the name. So let's go to filter, blur, and Gaussian blur. I've got a shortcut made up, Control and hash key, hash symbol. If you go into the preferences, you can create your own shortcuts. I use this Gaussian blur a lot, so it's worth my while having a shortcut. So Control and hash key for me. And generally, what you want to do is where you see a difference in the colour of skin, have a look till the colour disappears. And it's generally around about the 15 to 20. And you see there's almost no difference in the colour. Well, there is difference in the colour, but there's an easy transition between the two. Say if you look here around about the eyes, we're almost no step change of colour. It's a very gradual change in the colour. So do that, click OK. I'll just go with 15. Make the top layer visible. And you want to go to Image, Apply Image. And just forget this for a wee second. And if you go to Apply Image, you want to have these settings. The source is that. The layer is going to be the low layer. And you can see we can now see some detail here. The blending has to be subtract. And essentially what we're doing is we're subtracting the detail from this layer here. This setting here is opacity 100, scale 2 and offset 128. Now I never made these settings up. I don't know who did, but it's a very often used method of skin retouching. Probably most of the photographers I know now use it. So click OK. And come over to this panel here, and the blending mode you want to choose is linear light. And you'll see there's, if I go really close in, you'll see there's almost completely exactly the same as we were to start with. If I go down to the background layer, if I hold Alt on the background layer, it'll turn everything else off. And you can see there's a very subtle change in here, but it's so small it's barely noticeable. So now what we're going to do is add another layer to our already blurred layer. And rather than add it a little bit at a time, what I like to do is get the lasso tool, which is up here, and just make a selection of the skin. Pretty much all the skin you can see, but avoid going over any harsh lines, like for instance the eyelashes. Try and go down here, and again you see the edge of the nose. Try and avoid going over the edge of the nose. Certainly go as close as you can to it, and we'll go all the way up to here. So there's the first part of the selection. If you now hold the shift key, you'll see a little plus symbol appearing on the icon here. That means I can add to the selection. If I hold the alt key, I can subtract from it, but we're going to add to it. So hold the shift key, and we're just going to, again, try and avoid going over any hard lines, even creases next to the eyes or anything like that. And you don't have to try and select all in one go. And you have to be careful here. Sometimes going around the mouth, it'll try and include the nose. Does it itself, nothing to do with me. Okay. And it's especially good to do it in areas where there is a transition. It's light here and a shadow there. And we're just going to try and do this all in one go. I try and do it all in one go so we can work just with one layer of blur and not have to add. Again, hold shift key, and we're just going to close this gap up. So we've not selected any of the mouth, we've not selected the nostrils, we've not selected the eye. We could try going over and selecting, and don't worry if you do select a bit that you're not wanting to select, you can easily deselect it. And that one's not bad, we'll leave that at that. So once you made your selection, and we could select other bits of skin down here if we wanted to, but I'm quite happy that we've got all the bits that we sort of need. So once you made your selection, you're going to go back into Gaussian blur, and if you've not got a shortcut, it's filter, blur, Gaussian blur, or your keyboard shortcut. And we start quite high with this. We usually generally about 20, which seems a lot, but it's not. And if we take this right back in here, if we hold that in, take it out, you see it's doing some. Get up to here. Remember, we're already blurring a blurred layer, but we're looking at it through this top layer. So click OK. And if we hit Control and D, that'll let us deselect. So if you have a quick look over now, we have got a nice even transition. And that includes most of the shadows that run very even. Now, if we take the highlight, if we hold the background layer, hold the Alt key, and click on the eyeball, you'll see the shadows are just a little bit smoother. It's also added a little bit of blur, the kind of overall appearance. But if you have a look around about the eye here, you'll see the texture. It's pretty much still intact, but the transition between the shadows and highlights is now a lot less apparent. Now go back up to this top layer, the higher frequency layer, and we'll take either the spot healing tool or the healing brush tool. Because the skin is pretty good on here, I'm just going to take the spot healing tool. If somebody had lots of blemishes or red marks or anything like that, you might take the healing brush tool and work with that. But I'm just going to go, I always start from the left and work my way across, and I'm going to take any stray hairs within the sort of line of the face. Now, if you do this and you get a funny colour like that, it means you've got this bit here ticked, sample all layers. So untick that. That means we're only working on this layer here. So let's take that a little bit in there, and you can do it as fast or slow as you want. Just go up around any stray hairs. Anything that's not sort of too big that you could be doing with getting ready, just do it. For bigger areas we would use different tool to this one, but for things like a hair it's fine. I've got a 3 strikes rule. If it doesn't move it in 3 sort of strokes of this pen, then it's probably not going to remove it. Then we would try a different tool. And I'm just basically anything at all here, any little pimple or mark. And there really are very, very little here. There's a little one here. And this little hair here. And then this one over here. And realistically we should be able to get all these off. Try not to overwork one particular area, because if you do, you'll end up with it looking quite pasty. Basically, what I'm doing here is just skin texture I'm smoothing. There's no blemishes or spot. It might be a little bit of makeup somewhere that's gathered. Now, if we look at the eyelashes, you'll see eyebrows. Sorry, you'll see there's one rather prominent hair here, so I'm just going to get rid of that. And it's really just personal preference to how much time you want to spend on this. Spend a little bit more. A few of these hairs we can get rid of. Again, usually could do it in 2 or 3 strokes. If it takes more than that, then it's not going to do it, so just forget it. And while you might not notice one of these little wee hairs as you're taking your photos, believe me, if you give these photos to a model and there's hairs in her face, you'll know all about it. Almost there. Almost there, but just at the point where I'm maybe just starting to overdo it this little bit. So maybe not do any more here. You can just start to see it. I'm zoomed in to 100%, and in normal circumstances you're not going to see it. And I'm also going to put some highlights there, so I'm not really too bored with it. And I'm just going to take all the wee blemishes off. Some of them may well be permanent, but just for the sake of this video, I'll take them off. Now, there's a slight discoloration with the skin here. If I go in close, you might see it better. Just above the lip. And what I'm going to do is change the brush now to the helium brush tool. We'll sample from just above it, and we'll just paint in. Whoops, daisy. Again, make sure you're on to current layer only on this one. Just up to here. And maybe up to there. And I think possibly it's shadow, but it might be. Take it for really up there. Take the colour and so it keeps its own texture when you're with this brush, but we'll take the colour from where you're wanting it to. So sample for here and this little bit spot there, we can just paint over with this one. And it just works, it just repairs as it goes. But there is an element of cloning in it, if you can avoid using it too much. Right, try and do something with this coat over here. So I've got a lot of that off, but I'm going to paint it a little bit, I think. So we get B for the brush. Do a little bit of paint in there. Such a small area, a wee bit of paint's fine. And I'll maybe just paint a little bit colour and put lipstick into close lip up there. If we check the before and after on that, so it balances up this side. So pretty happy with the skin. And we'll just finish up this little bit here. A little bit of a cool. Okay. Okay. So for now, that's the skin. To group a bunch of layers, hold shift, highlight the first one you want to group, then hold shift and highlight the top one you want to group, so you've got everything highlighted, and then hit Control and G to make a group, or right click and create group. From layers. But we've already created it now, so we can leave that. Next I'm going to tackle the hair. So we'll get the pen tool, hit P on the keyboard for your pen tool. We're going to make a selection of the hair from here downwards. So let's go from about here. And I want to try and get quite a neat selection of this little bit. And now I'm just going to go up, not too particular over this side of the face at the moment. We're not going to touch anything to the right of this. Now up here, I'm going to just make this a little bit bigger. And we're just going to try and keep a neat line up here. I keep hitting this in my hand, right up to here and there. And what I'm not trying to do is give a completely straight edge on the hair, because it just wouldn't look normal. I'm trying to keep some of the line that's obviously there. But maybe I'll come down here because the hair's getting a wee bit thinner towards the edge. Again, it's just flyaways, there's no major issues with them. and we're just deciding where we want to send the hairline. That's maybe too much there, so go back up a couple, I think probably. To back up, Control Alt Z on the keyboard. And I'm going to take this sort of line off here. So I now go around the outside of the image, and really what I want to do is just to make a selection all the way down here. And what I've done is made a selection of all the white that I need to make selection. So right click and make selection, give it a 2 pixel feather. And if we go out a little bit, you'll see better what I'm doing. We now want to get the brush, so hit B on your keyboard for the brush tool, or you can select it over here. The brush there. And we want to make an extra. This little symbol here is telling you I can't do anything on this layer, and that's because I've got a closed group there. I can't paint on top of a closed group, but I can paint into an empty layer, so we're going to put a layer there. And we've got brush selected. We'll make the brush a little bit larger and a little bit more of a feather. And we're going to hit D on the keyboard. This here you see there's red paint. If I was to paint now, that's red. Control Z, undo that. You want the default colours black and white, so just hit D on the keyboard. That brings the default is black to the foreground. If you hit X, that'll bring white to the foreground. So now I'm just going to paint into this area. Actually, it's not white there, it's probably grey. So if we hit Alt the keyboard, and you can see the colour, the top half of this wheel is really grey. So we're just going to paint in there. And the reason you make the selection is with the pen tool, it just means that I can't paint outside of that selection. I can only paint within it. Well, I've got the selection active, and you see all these wee dancing ants. That tells you the selective is still active. So that's how grey it is. I'm painting on it. I've only got 8% flow in my brush. That's why it's not turning it completely grey. And you see we're just tidying up this hairline up here, but because we're still leaving that little bit gap, it looks quite natural. I'm just painting around. Sampling all the time because it was lights, it was in a studio, and there'll be a different colour light on the background with the lights that were nearest, or the lights that are not getting hidden by the model. So we've tidied it up down here quite a bit. Still a little bit more to do though. Just quickly go back around that all, make sure I've got all the strays. And that looks fine. So Control and D will deselect it. Just one more wee bit there. Control and D will deselect. And now I'm going to use another tool to thicken this up. I'll leave it all on the same layer. So if we hit S for the clone stamp, or this one here, so it's S for the stamp, and there's naturally flowing here going in the same direction as that for round about here. So I'm going to take a sample for about here, just where it goes shadow and then dark. I'll take it just at the dark bit. We're just going to start painting into here. Now it'll look a bit weird to start with, and the only one that goes far is the edge of the hair that's already there. A little bit bigger. And the reason for coming in like this, it just looks a lot better hair flowing down onto our shoulder in a thick sort of mass then. And that looks a lot better, I think. And the trick to making these sort of things work is when I took the selection of hair, I worked out where the hair direction was travelling, and it was naturally going that way. So that looks fine there. And we'll see if I can bring a little bit of this thicker hair out to here. It's easier going in the way than out the way, so this may not look quite right, but we'll give it a bash. So if we take it to a bit here, you can see there's a naturally curling bit of hair there. And I'm just going to start painting down the way. Just as soon as I get up to that bit there, just paint down. And that's fine, just into there. And that more or less goes. And as you can see, you can actually add quite a bit of body into here as well. And we get to put a wee mask on that. Put a mask on. Everything that's white is what we've done. You can see it. If I want to hide some of that, I can paint black into bits I want to hide. So I'm going to just paint black now. Select a brush. And a really small brush, quite a hard brush. I just want to tighten that end up, this wee edge up right here. So we have a reasonably. And you can see that that's made quite a bit of difference. And there's one other bit I want to do, which is over the other side. And it's just bring this line down so it's a bit more natural. So just take a S for the clone stamp again. Sometimes it gives you the save dialogue. S for this. I just want to make sure that this line's not too hard. So take a wee sample for there. And we'll just make that a little bit less straight edged here. And I'm just going to go up to here a bit. I'm just going back here a little bit. And if you're not getting quite the look you want, just take a wee sample for here where there is a natural transition where hair meets skin. And just bring that down to the plumb edge. So that's that. Again, if we turn the hair off and on, you can see it's made quite a bit of difference. Now, the next thing I'm going to do takes a few minutes to do, but it's worth doing it, and we're going to colour the hair a little. We're going to make it a little sleeker looking and emphasise some of the highlights more. So let's get a solid colour adjustment layer. It looks a bit weird to start with. I'm just going to go to a colour near to what we're already working with. And when you load an adjustment layer from here, or from sorry, here layer, new adjustment layer, when you load it from here, it loads with a mask. Now, solid colour adjustment layer is just one layer full of colour, and as you can see, it's all visible through the white mask. Now if we fill the mask with black, and to fill a layer mask with black, if you just hit Control and the letter I on the keyboard, it fills it with black. And what I'm going to do now will look a bit strange, but bear with me. So we're going to get the brush, and we're just going to paint white into the mask, and white is going to reveal whatever is under the mask, and for now it's that strange colour. And it's actually quite close to what she's got just now. So we'll just quickly paint in here. Because we're painting a layer mask, if you do go onto his face or something like that, don't worry too much about it, because you can just paint it right back out. And if I painted up here, for instance, I would just reverse in the colour down here, and now we'd be painting black, and you can just paint it back out. So painting white into the black layer mask for now. Take my flow up a bit. I've got a really low flow. I prefer to have a low flow on my brush than a fast one. But for something like this, it probably makes more sense to have it flowing quite fast. And we're going to do 2 layers like this. And just keep painting away until you're pretty sure you've got all the little strands done. Okay, so as I've got pretty much all the hair selected or painted, and when it's all painted, if you double click your mouse on here, it'll bring up this dialog box, and we're going to do the exact same in a minute. So start from here, and as soon as you start to see the colour break up, if you hold the Alt key down on the keyboard and then do that, and you'll see, if I just close this layer just now, you can see at the moment it's adding something. But if we change the layer length blending mode to soft light or to overlay, you get just a little bit more of a kind of coppery look. And I'm going to double hit Control and J to duplicate that layer, and we'll go back into this little icon here, double click on it, and I'm going to close this back up, and we're going to come down for the other way. So looks quite ginger just now. We'll make this one soft light for sure. Now, the colour we can go in and refine. It's just a bit too close to ginger. Maybe more a brown. And this one's just affecting the lightest parts of the hair. Quite like that. We're then going to group these two layers, and we could dial the effect back. We dial it all the way back to 0, and then just come up a little bit. And then we've added a nice sort of richness to the colour. And then we're going to add some light, so a curve layer, new curves adjustment there, and we're just going to go way up with that. Oh, too much. And if we hit Control and I, we'll fold that mask again. And we've got a brush, and we're going to take the brush way back down to about 7 or 8%. And we're just going to paint with a really soft brush just a little bit into the highlights. Just the highlights I'm doing here. And that just adds to that appearance to be a nice sheen. Because I've only got 8% on the brush, I can go back over them 2 or 3 times and it just adds in. So if you're happy with that, you can go back there if I want a little bit more colour, because I quite like the colour. But 70%, quite like that. And I'm just going to put that down to here. I'm going to open that group up and put the curved in beside there. So there you can see it. Actually, the curves has went quite dark going inside there. Let's take the curves out of there. If you hold Control and press the right bracket key, it will take it out. So we'll leave that there, but we still want to group them. So highlight curves layer, highlight group layer, Control and G, and that's them all grouped together. So we've done the face, we've done the hair, we've got the eyes to do and the lips. So we'll do the lips first. So, no, let's do the eyes first because I don't want to make a stamp visible just yet. So up close and personal with the model's eyes. And I'm going to add a bit of highlight and shadow into the face in a minute as well. We'll do the eyes first. So I do the curves adjustment layer, and I'll have 3 of these by the time I'm finished. So the first one I just put way up there, and then hit Control and I on your keyboard to invert the mask. B for a brush, and you want a brush probably about 4 or 5 pixels, really small. There's one there, 6 pixels. I'm just going to paint random shapes into the eye, and what I'm doing is I'm allowing some of that curves layer to come back through. And I'm just painting into the bottom part of the eye, and this would be the bit of the eye that is lighter anyway, because that's the way the light hits your eye. That's always the bottom part is lighter than the top. So again, we're just going to paint some of that stuff through. And then we're going to add a little blur onto that. So again, Control and hash key for me. It would be filter, blur, Gaussian blur for you. And I want to make the blur about 3 pixels. So we can see it, but it's not overpowering. And if it is too strong, you could dial it down a bit. About 60% maybe. Yeah, it's not bad there. Okay. The next one, again, is curves. And this time, because I've got grey in the eyes, we can pick blue or green. Probably green, more appropriate. And again, just from the middle, pull it up. And then Control and I to invert the mask. And again, just in the same sort of area, you just want a few random flecks of green in amongst that. And remember, I'm still like 8% flow with my brush, so these are very faint little bits of blue, almost unnoticeable. And Control hash key, enter, and dial it down to about 60%. And the next curves layer, we're going to work at the brown bit of the eye. And all we're doing with these layers is enhancing the colour, making it a bit more saturated. And I've got about 2 colours on this one, like green. And if we go back to the blue, if we pull it down the way green and blue make yellow, sorry, the opposite of blue is yellow. Control and I again. And I'm now just going to do the exact same again, but this time into the darker coloured part of the iris. And all it's doing is enhancing what is already there. You can see it's not a great deal of difference in that colour to what's here to start with, but it's now much sharper. And again, Control and hash key or blur, Gaussian blur, add your filter, 3 pixels, and that's that. The next one we're going to do is add a bit empty layer, just a new layer. Got the brush, got on white, and we're going to go into the white parts of the eye and just paint over what is already there. Nice and bright. And all you're doing is taking the white part that's there and making it sort of pure white. But it'll still look natural, it'll not look like painted on white. And don't worry, I'm painting over the reflection, we'll get back in a wee second. Okay, and for this one again, double click. We just want to split this away up here, hold the Alt key, split these. That's down here, and that can go usually up to about there. And if we hold down, you see all we've done is made the reflection that little bit sharper. You can still see through it, we're not hiding it with paint. It doesn't look a lot, but it just adds that little bit in there. Next one, another empty layer. And if we hit J on the keyboard, it's actually spot healing tool we're looking for again. Hit J. And we're just going to paint over these little veins in the eyes. Oops, make sure our sample layers is ticked. And just, you'll not get rid of everyone, but the more you can get rid of it, the less visible they are. I'll just quickly get rid of a few of these. And the eye, like any other part of the sort of picture, that if you overdo it with this tool, it'll start looking pasty and unreal. And it's unreal to think that we'd maybe have no veins in the eyes. I can actually do just one there. So sometimes it doesn't go right. If it doesn't go right, just hit Control and Z. And just back up, take that one off. So we'll leave that eye there, and we'll go back over to this one. And it's that one there. That didn't work on that one, so we'll just Control and Z to undo that one. So that's the eyes pretty much done. We're just going to put a sharpening layer over now. So we need a stamp visible layer for sharpening. So we go Control, Alt, Shift and E. and it brings up a visible merged version of the whole lot. And we'll go to filter, other, and high pass. And you only want this 1.5, 2 pixels. We'll go 2 pixels. It's easier to see what I'm doing if I do it that way. So 2 pixels, obviously you can't see anything, so we come over to the layer blending mode and we'll change it to linear light. You won't think there's much went wrong, but if we go close into it and I turn this layer off and on, you'll see just how much sharpening is in there. It's far too much. So we turn the layer back on, but we're going to hide it behind a mask. So if we hold the Alt key down and click on a mask, it'll put in a black mask. And now I'm just going to paint white into the mask at a very low flow, 8%, and we're just going to bring some of that detail back into the eye. And you don't want to overdo it. And you can really only see that when I do that, but that's in there. Okay, we'll just bring it back in. Just go over the whole eye, it's fine. And just over these lashes. And move over the brows. I've got a little bit of makeup there. Sorry about this. Whenever I pan, that's going to happen, I'm afraid. So if we go out a bit now, you might think that's just a bit too much, but it's fine, we can dial it back a little. That's with no sharpening. Let's bring it in so we can see the change. So that's with 0. I think that's probably quite good there. It's about 60%. So we'll now put all these eye ones in here. So first one's highlighted, hold shift, highlight the next lot, Control and G, that's them in a group. And the last thing I'm going to do is a little bit highlight and shadow on the skin. So let's get an extra empty layer and back to the brush. Still keep the flow relatively slow. And we're just going to paint up in this area up here. There's a natural area where you would get sort of highlights. Top of your cheekbone if the light's above you. Put a little bit down here. Not so much there. Maybe a little bit over here, but not very much. The reason I'm putting some over there is because you can see where the shadow on the nose stops. So the was a little bit over there. Maybe just put a little bit up here. And a little bit over here. And we then go back to double click on this and we get the layer styles dialog box, and again we're just going to see that just where the transition starts, just where we start to lose that colour. Hold the Alt key, split this, and it feathers it way down. And if it changes the blend mode again to soft light or overlay works with white, it doesn't matter. I think overlay is a bit better. And we're just going to do almost exactly the opposite now with another new layer, and we'll use the black and we'll paint from corner of the mouth up towards the cheek. We do it in here, it doesn't really matter. And same on that side, and you can see where it's naturally going to go. Double click. Now black's not so easy to get rid of. If we do it for there, we're going to get rid of it completely. So we're just going to split it from here. And you see it's not away yet. We'll go to the soft light. And then we'll reduce the opacity. So completely away. We want just a hint of shadow just about there. Okay. And if I want, I can reshape that. Maybe add in a little bit border here, and that gives you a little bit of cheek. And once I've got the shape that I want, I'm going to do a little bit over here as well. I can hit a mask and get rid of any that I think is maybe just too much. And almost there. The last bit is going to be round about the lip. So get a brush, default, back to the brush, make it quite big. You can see what you're doing. And this light here that's already quite light, it's where the light is reflected from above. So we've got a really small brush, and we just want to copy that line. And I'm painting with white. You can either use a curved layer, brighten it, and then just paint into the mask, or do it this way. And like the whole way through this, I'm painting with 8%. So again, let's see, only show through where the underlying layer is darker. I'll do it from here. Too much, so let's do it from that end. And we'll maybe drop the opacity or change it to soft light again, actually. And it just gives a hint. And adds a little bit definition. Where there isn't some. And maybe just do a little bit opposite there. Add a little bit of shadow. Try this way first. And that gives just a hint of shadow, and we can actually paint a wee bit further around there if you want. And just pass it back a little bit. And that just gives a little hint of that. And then you go over everything, and that's when you start dialing things back. So that layer's not having a whole lot of. So maybe dial this one back even more. And last layer, gonna do just add a little bit of colour back now. And we're on the brush. If we take a sample with maybe just a little bit of pink colour in here. And we're just going to add a little bit of that colour into the cheeks. Right there. And again, we'll change it to a soft light layer so we can see what we're doing. Or we can change it to overlay and it might be a bit darker. No, too pink. Soft light better. But there you go. That's a full retouch. We'll just group all that stuff there. And there's where we start. And there's where we ended up. Hope that was enjoyable.